Recording in progress.
Good morning, honorable members.
Morning, Chair.
I hope we all woke up on time. Can we officially, because it's 9 o'clock now, declare the meeting open and welcome you, honorable members, to your meeting. Honorable Minister, if he is available, or the leader of the delegation of the department, let me welcome you and indicate that we should be having a working meeting, because this one talks about fourth quarter performance. So we will be briefed by the department in terms of that. So let me welcome you. And any apologies, Secretary?
Everybody, there's an apology from the Minister. She will be attending Cabinet Committee meeting. There's also an apology from Demba Pela that's attending the African Union Specialized Technical Committee on Public Service, Local Government and Urban Development in Cairo, Egypt. That's all the apologies we received, Chairperson, and we do have a quorum for the meeting. Thank you very much.
What you are leaving out is to indicate who is leading the delegation of the department.
Sorry, Chairperson, I do see the Deputy Minister Nkadiming on the platform. Thank you very much.
That's what I wanted. Welcome, DM and the team, and assume the DJs as well. Let me welcome you. Briefly, in my opening remarks, I would like to help all of us to understand that I think government generally committed itself to deal with some of the issues that are afflicting our communities, especially on issues that relate to the delivery of services, and as well as dealing with all these challenges that relate to corruption specifically, because I think it's a challenge for all of us. I keep on saying, in fact, I did indicate my views on the issue of the use of the Portfolio Committee WhatsApp group, my understanding of it and how it should be used. But it doesn't mean that we don't see some of the things that get raised there. And when I say we, I mean all of us, starting with the executive in particular, and generally members of the committee and administrators. So somehow we don't just look at those things and say because they need to be properly processed and pretend that we don't see them. So we are taking notes of those, but I'm saying those who have got responsibility to act on them, please do. And also the committee as well will have to find a way to process some of those issues and follow up on them. Otherwise, it might send a message. I'm not the chairperson who would respond to those things that get raised there. I indicated my stance on that, but it doesn't mean that we don't see them. And it also does not mean that there must be no action responding to them. And when I say no action, that starts with the executive as well as the committee itself. I just thought I should raise those because there are many dramatic things that we are seeing across the country when it comes to some of these issues I'm talking about. And those drama must not be left unattended. So I thought I should raise that, but let's come back and focus on what we are supposed to do today. The item is briefing on the fourth quarter performance by DCOG, by MESA and DTA. I would immediately hand over to...
Sorry, Chair.
Yes.
Good morning, Chair. I just came in and immediately when you said good morning, and I'm saying good morning again, because I do not want to sound like I'm interjecting while you are running a meeting. So that decorum is observed. But Chair, our intention in raising those issues in the group is not to alarm the group, because some of the things are really, really dramatic, and we want to apologize maybe to those that are sensitive. But this is the reality of a violent state. This is a reality of neglecting the people. This is the reality in South Africa of a government and a government party that has done everything else not to break loose from colonialism, which perpetuates that those that are downtrodden, Chair, those that are deliberately neglected, Chair, are done so perpetually by a government that does not want to take into cognizance the chronic inequalities, the violence that is taking place against the workers of the municipalities, the violence that is taking place against the vulnerable people of the country, blacks in particular. So when we do so, Chair, we do so to take the leadership in the committee to actually look at those things and address those issues, not to say that you must comment and in the process promise us action, while the officials themselves who are supposed to act cannot act on those issues. So we do so because on the ground, on the very ground where our people are residing, on the deplorable ground where the people are residing, which is a disparity between the white thinking and this thing, and where they reside. So we genuinely do that because we are on the ground and we receive these things from the ground. So as part of you are going to get all that. That we are getting from the ground, because we are genuinely there to receive.
Honorable Chairs, I think we have noted, that's why I am raising this issue, for us to note, and I'm saying for us to find a way to deal with some of these issues in terms of our work as a committee, but we are also taking this opportunity because we are meeting with the executive, but I was not raising it for discussion, because if unless at some point we'll have to raise it as a point of discussion. But I was just indicating that we must not keep quiet when some of these things are happening. But I will allow these few hands just to comment on this and we proceed to what we are doing. Honorable Shengiwe Mkalipi.
Thank you very
Please
much.
note my hand, Chair.
Yes, I've noted it.
Good morning, Chairperson. Greetings to colleagues. Chair, I just want to comment on your opening remarks regards to issues that are raised on WhatsApp group. And the chair is correctly says that he does not respond on WhatsApp group. And then thanks for this opportunity whereby you just mention on your opening remarks for noting. But the difficulties becomes when the chair does not give us direction as members on the committee. But I would like to propose a way forward, because when I was listening to you, Chair, you are saying that no, you are taking note of what is happening and there must be an action. So I will suggest that because today we are dealing with the department and the department might not know what the members are raising on that portfolio committee, on that WhatsApp committee, because the WhatsApp committee is for only members. There is no department there. Only our secretary, as far as I remember. And I don't know if there is any member of the executive in the WhatsApp as well. So I'll suggest, Chair, if you can arrange a meeting or for members of the portfolio committees just to talk amongst members as the PC of COGTA without the department, without the executive, and then find one another in terms of the program. And I note the program that was just posted by our secretary of the committee after we have sent some of the things that are happening on the ground, as Honorable Cesar is putting. Maybe, Chairperson, is because we are also get pressured by members of the public and members of the councils and all other stakeholders on what is happening on the ground. But this platform now, I don't think, and you are correct to say that it's for noting. We must get to the business of the day. And the chair, I will appeal to you to have another meeting whereby all of us as members will have a chance to talk and also chat a way forward on how to deal with these issues. That is my proposal, Chair. Thanks.
Thanks, Honorable Simango.
Thank you very much, Chair. Two things that I want to raise is that one, while it is correct for members to raise concerns around the things that are raised or that are sent into the WhatsApp group, but I want to request that members must not raise political statements that will agitate us, because at the end of the day, we'll have to then respond. Reality is, we are all in the same corner when it comes to the wrong things that get to be sent into this WhatsApp group. But at the same time, we colleagues from EFF must not behave like as if they are the only party that is on the ground, the only party. We need to find to
but
do.
You must also not behave like you are the only. You are a
Now, you see now, when you are attacking us, we have to respond. You know, Msimango, when we are attacking the EFF, we need to respond. We are not going to allow you to fight us here. We are members here, we are representing people on the ground, and I have come with a way forward, and then now you come and attack EFF. We are not going to allow you. We are not going to attack EFF.
Nonsensical.
Nonsense yourself.
Also nonsensical.
Nonsense is you.
Can't be nonsense.
Nonsense is
Your
you.
nonsense.
You are failing people of South Africa.
Because you are failing now. You are failing now yourself.
Keep quiet.
Which ground are you on yourself? Which ground are you on? 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 All you are concerned about where Namsimango is the spot, is the green lights. You want to be promoted here, you want to come here and be promoted. You want to come and be promoted by reactionary remarks.
I've not allowed Honorable
solution here.
Mkalipi and Honorable Cesar to speak. I allowed Honorable Msema. And I would imagine that we should be tolerant of, we're just making comments.
Chair,
And
you must
anybody
protect
who has
us.
got any
The
issue,
minute that Msimango is saying that EFF does not have a monopoly,
Chair,
we're supposed
When
to
he's
stop him there.
prompting
Yeah,
an
you must stop
argument.
him
If
there.
people are
Otherwise,
going
You must stop
we are
him
going
there,
to respond
Chair,
on his.
because we've never
Chair,
said anything
Monday,
about the
not only-
ANC.
but in any,
I'm saying-
You
We
must
have
also
never
tell your
said
people to
anything
stop
about
killing
the
our
ANC
people on
in
the
our
ground,
comment,
man.
because
And you are not
part
here
of
because
it
of
is
your
that we
ticket,
know we are
Msimango.
united.
We must
You are
win
not going to be
elections
told by
You are
your
the only one that does
We are
that.
not
The
going to
only
have
one.
this foolishness
You are
of
the
yours.
only one that does that.
We are not going to have
Honorable,
this foolishness of yours.
Honorable Teza and Honorable Mkaripi, I allowed you to speak.
Asimnengi nganiksi, Chair.
I
Not as
allowed you
many.
to speak.
Yes, yes. Asimnengi nganiksi.
Honorable Teza and
Unfair in the
Honorable
society, Mos. You are
Mkaripi, I
irrelevant.
allowed
You
to
are
speak.
irrational. You are.
I allowed all of you to speak, but this time it was Honorable Msima. And I understand, when it is correct, we are public representatives. We come from different constituencies. But like I'm saying, and I think I agree with the proposal that says this was just comments by the chairperson. And we said we have noted it, there will be action, clear proposal to say how should we take that forward. And I think we have agreed with that. But I wanted to allow Honorable Msiman to speak as I allowed Honorable Mkalipi as well as Honorable Teza to speak. I didn't get into your comments and whatever that you said. So let's agree now. We move forward. Those were just opening remarks. Let's get to the business of the day. The business of the day is briefing on the fourth quarter performance by DCOC, MISA, and DTA. Can I now hand over to the DM? DM, I think you have noted some of the issues that we are talking about. I was not sure about who is in that group. But some of the things that come out from that, they need to be managed. And that's the position. And I assumed that there might be access by the department on some of the things, because the reports that we receive from the department, they are supposed to be flighted there. But the comments that come out of that group, I'm saying let's find a way now to deal with them, because they are talking about the people that we represent. But I'm handing over to you, DM. Not necessarily this problem that I've just raised, but specifically on what we are supposed to deal with. Over to you, DM.
Thank you very much, Chair, and good morning to honorable members as well. I'm with the both Director Generals, DCOC and MISA, represented by DG Ivory Williamson, and the Department of Traditional Affairs, also led by DG Dipofu. Honorable Chair, thank you very much for the opportunity the Portfolio Committee has afforded us to come to bring forth the fourth quarter report. But possibly before I make the highlights on the report itself, will be to mention I, as myself, I'm not certain with the minister, am not in the group. So I do not necessarily directly have insight of what honorable members are raising with regard to issues. But my experience is that most of the time the issues we pick up as a department, either from the media or from social media, or even what gets to be raised directly either to provinces or to Cooperative National, it does arrive to our tables and we dispatch teams variously. I mean, for example, the issue of stiftry at the municipality, nobody raised it anyway with the department, but we picked it up on social media and we swiftly acted, deployed the team. Even up to yesterday, it was still there, trying to intervene and mediate between the employees and the employer so that the situation is normalized. We saw on social media the issue of a Buffalo City manager. We acted as I'm just citing two of the examples. We do not necessarily wait for a written letter. When we pick up urgent things that need to be dealt with, as a department, we will act swiftly. The minister will sanction those teams immediately, and they go into the ground and come back with what needs to be assisting the situation. But we'll leave it up there, Chair, noting what Honorable Mukalipi has said, that possibly there will be a day where the committee will appraise the department on the issues that they've been raising in the group, WhatsApp group, and then we will be able to prepare ourselves to bring responses into that. Thank you for that opportunity, Chair. Now I will hand over to both the COC under the leadership of the DG to start taking us through on the fourth quarter report, which overall, Chair, shows the concerns of how we are adequately ensuring that local government in general is everybody's business, but also we respond into how we're trying to assist the department to build the capable and a developmental state. I'm informed from the reports that it will actually be Mema Bidilala who will deliver the report and the financial sustainability of local government. So to this end, our undertakings on local government, Chair, are informed by what we need to do as the COC lead in governance, institutional development, and of most importantly, citizens' engagement and the coordination, collaboration of service delivery in the sector of local government at large. And maybe my parting shot on the introduction, Chair, will be, we need to collaborate. If we're bringing everybody into the business of what we're trying to achieve, we need cohesiveness ourselves in terms of approach, in terms of understanding, and yes, the committee holding us accountable in what we are supposed to do. With your permission, Chair, would you allow me then to request that DCOC commence with their presentation for tomorrow? Thank you very much. I'm sorry for today.
Thank you.
For tomorrow. Why, yeah, DM.
Good morning, Honorable Chairperson, and I also want to greet all the honorable members, and I also recognize our Deputy Minister, and I also greet all my colleagues and the officials. With your permission, Chair, I would like to put my camera off just so that I can have increased bandwidth. I'm just concerned about the stability of my network. Chair, we are actually here. Thank you. Chair, we are actually here to provide the Portfolio Committee with an update on our Q4 performance for the department. If I could ask that we move to the next slide. And this is the overview of our report. The focus or emphasis will be on the annual performance report for the quarter as part A, and then the DCOG annual financial performance for the quarter as part B. We were also requested, Chair, to provide a report on the extent and the cost of the private security employed and the procurement that has been undertaken in the department over the last 5 years. If we could move to the next slide. I've already covered this one, so if we could go to the next one. So, Chair, this and members, this provides us with a summary of the performance for the quarter. So the overall performance is for the quarter is 79%. We had 34 targets that we had to achieve, and of those 34, we achieved 27. And 7 were not achieved. And this shows a slight increase from the previous quarterly performance. And if you look at it from Q1 to Q4, you can see the improvement. If we could go to the next slide. Excuse me. So the targets that we achieved, go to the next slide. Within Program 1, you can see that there were 7 targets, and all of these have been achieved, and they relate to starting off with the qualified audit opinion, and then moving on to what we call our corporate service improvement plan. It also looks to the financial service improvement plan that we had set out for the year, and also the internal audit plan. And for the period under review, there was also a number of investigations that were commissioned, arising of requests from external parties, and covering the elements of misconduct, fraud, and corruption allegations. So we are also have also achieved this. If we move to the next slide, it talks to the local government support and interventions management. Here we had to develop the DDM implementation framework. We needed to ensure that it incorporated the gender responsive targets and indicators. We also had to look at our integrated monitoring and evaluation framework. And we also then had to finalize both the framework and manual. It was then discussed before the end of the financial year. And the IM&E framework also had findings, recommendations, and also implications for implementation that needed to be considered by ourselves. We also had to look at the DDM1 plan prototype. This was developed and released. And also the one plan prototype was also then presented to members of the project technical and steering committees during the course of the quarter. We also needed to look at the individual development plans and how these are then aligned to the one plans, and they needed to be submitted to our minister for approval. And we also needed to look at the integrated economic recovery plans in the DDM1 plans, and these were also then looked at and submitted. We also had to look at the MIG allocations and the spend against the allocation by municipalities. There's a target that is set there, and we were in line with the target for the quarter. And we also had to look at priority water infrastructure projects and make certain that these were also included and aligned to the DDM1 plans. And for the Section 139 improvement plans, these also had to be developed, and we had also aligned these to the State of Local Government report. If we could move to the next slide. We also, in this program, had to look at the integrated economic recovery plans. In fact, I mentioned that, and also the MIG allocations and also the priority water infrastructure projects. We needed to look at how these were funded and included in the one plans. If we could move to the next slide. Okay, so in the institutional development branch, we had 6 targets, and of these 6 these were the ones that we achieved. The funding model had to be developed for local government, and we did this jointly with National Treasury. We also had to look at the municipal financial viability assessment and improvement tools. These have also been developed. We also had to look at a closeout report, and we needed to actually provide these to the stakeholders on the 2021 local government elections. We also had to ensure that we had drafted an integrated local government capacity building strategy in consultation with the stakeholders, and also just had to report on the National Responsible Citizenry campaign and all the engagements that we had conducted with the stakeholders in the quarter. We also had to look at the assessments of the impacts in terms of their functionality. Sorry, Chairperson, you're not muted. Sorry, Chair. Chairperson, I'm so sorry, you're not muted. Thank you. And then we also had to look at addressing issues that were raised by the AG in line with Section 134 as part of our post audit action plans, and these we had also then dealt with. If we could move to the next slide. We also had to look at the disaster management plans of the 3 municipalities, specifically in preparedness and to mitigate any disaster risks. And these were Madibeng, Utugela, and Umzinyathi districts. And we also had to consolidate a report indicating the 2 sector departments, that's transport and human settlements, in the implementation of the disaster funding arrangements. We also had to look at our annual report in terms of its performance and expenditure of disaster grants. So that was done also and submitted. And we also had to report on the priority national sector departments that we had assessed and supported to actually implement the disaster management function. If we could move to the next slide. So the targets that we didn't achieve, there were 7, and 4 of them are in the local government support interventions management branch. The first one related to the 1 plans and their development. So of the 52 districts, we had only completed 40 and 6 metros. The next one was to do with the hubs. We needed to ensure that we had developed hubs aligned to the 21 water service authority districts. And of course, we didn't achieve this because we still had to ensure that we had conducted a costing. We had to then review our approach, and we carried it over into this financial year. We also had to ensure that draft 1 plans and indicators were developed for the 3 smart cities. But we didn't quite reach that. We still need to make sure that was carried over then to this financial year. And the last one was the IMSI bill. We had actually looked at the bill, but what remained outstanding was for us to go and reconsult, and the consultation process actually took us a bit longer than anticipated, so we've carried that into this financial year. We could move to the next slide. We needed to make sure that municipalities had also included a target to reduce non-revenue electricity losses in the SDBIPs, and of the 52, only 33 had included these. So we've also carried this over into this financial year. The same applies then to the municipalities having to include a target to reduce non-revenue water. So we only had 29 municipalities of the 144, including this target into the SDBIPs. If we could move to the next slide. So if you look at the Community Works Program, we were required to have 250,000 participants on the program, and we managed to increase the number to just over 273,000. And we were due to have conducted training for the quarter, but we were not able to achieve this for this quarter. If we could then move to the next slide. And this is part B on our financial performance. The next slide. So the summary of our financial performance is that the adjusted appropriation we had received in total was sitting at just over 101 billion. And the financial and the actual expenditure against that was just over 98 billion, with a variance of 2.8. And of course, the main reason why it is that our expenditure was not at the level that it needed to be. I will also then indicate that it really came out of the local government and support, specifically around the actual transfer of the grants, and especially on the equitable share and understanding there, but I'll describe it a little further in the next slide. So if you look at compensation of employees, we had 358 million. Of that 358 million, 337 million was spent. And of course, if you also then look at the transfers and subsidies, of the 101 billion, 96, just over 96 billion does get transferred. Our goods and services budget makes up, is 4.6, and of that we spent 3.8. If we could then move to the next slide. So the expenditure and the performance against our expenditure. You can see that on compensation of employees, we were underspent by 6%. It's mainly attributed to vacancies that were not filled at the time. Our deputy minister had joined us, and we were then in the process of redeploying staff and trying to assist the office to a point. And then on the goods and services side, and the other thing I failed to say was that some of our SMS level positions also remained unfilled. And then the goods and services, we had an underspending of 18%. And the items for the period under review and major contributors to this underspending was the consultant contractors and inventory, consumables and travel and subsistence. And they also mostly included CW on-site support and the funding project management fees of implementing agents, tools and materials, and the participants' protective gear and wages. So most of the grants had been transferred. The local government equitable share had the underspending of 2.3%, and this was mainly attributed to the withholding and stopping the imposed due to non-compliance by the municipalities with conditions of DORA. The disaster relief fund, there was also underspending of 4.1%, since they are only transferring funds once the province and municipalities have depleted their allocation. On the MSIG, it also reported that we had underspent at 63% due to the delay in the consultations to endorse business plans and procurement by selected municipalities. On the left, we just show a diagrammatic view of the expenditure and the savings. If we could go to the next slide. With regards to the extent and cost of security, and the companies that we had brought on board to provide the service, the COCTA had actually appointed the private security service providers to render services that relate to physical security services. We have 5 buildings, and this mainly relates to access control. And it is also inclusive of the National House of Traditional Leaders. And they also provide to us a tactical response team in case of any strike or unrest in the 5 buildings. And they also provide us security equipment, which is listed. And also the above mentioned services that are rendered are 24/7, also including weekends and public holidays. We could go to the next slide. So the table actually then depicts the cost of private security that was employed or procured over the 5-year period. You will see that who the service providers are on the left, and I will focus then on 2021-22 because it gives a good indication of what was then spent on each of the security companies. So 7.4 million, 4 million, and just over 11 million. And over the period, you will see that 54 million, just 54,969,000 has been spent on the security services. We could go to the next slide. We therefore recommend that the Portfolio Committee notes the Q4 performance report and also the cost of the private security that we had employed over a 5-year period. Thank you, Chair, and thanks to the members for the opportunity. Chairperson, I thought I should once again say I'm done with the presentation. If you like, Chair still in the room.
Hello.
We can hear you now, Chair. Thank you.
Yes, I can. I can hear you.
Chair, the DG was indicating that we have concluded the part
Oh,
that
okay.
she was supposed
Then
to
we must,
present.
we'll present all of them in terms of the agenda. So the next one should follow.
Thank you. We'll do that, Chair, without interjecting. Thank you. DG, can we then present the next presentation?
Chair. Chairperson.
Yes.
Yeah, so I had my hand up earlier on. I wanted to indicate that at 10, can you please excuse me? I have to attend the Chiefs Forum, but Fighter Players, I will remain here, and the revolution is in good hands while I'm away. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, now apology accepted. Let's proceed.
Okay, thank you, Chair. Chair, the next entity on the agenda, I think, is NISA.
Good morning, Chairperson, and good morning, honorable members, DM, DGs, and my colleagues. I will be taking the committee through MISA Q4 performance report. In the interest of time, Chair, there are slides that are common cause, which I'm not going to go through, like the vision, mission, and mandate of MISA. I take that it is read, it has not changed. So I will jump straight to the performance against the APP targets. Next slide. Next slide. Next slide. Thank you very much. This is a summary of our Q4 performance, Chairperson. We had annual targets, 33 annual targets, but for the Q4, we are reporting against 32 targets, and 29 of the 32 targets were achieved, which translates to 91% performance. Next slide. These are the achievements per program, Chairperson. I won't really bore the committee, in particular with program 1 achievements. I will take them as read and move straight to program 2 and program 3, where I will spend some time to take the committee through, which is our core business. Chairperson, next slide. Thank you very much. Chair, we had reported previously to the committee that we had assisted municipalities to develop plans and strategies to address water conservation and demand management. This current financial year, we're assisting them to implement those strategies. Now, 10 water conservation and water demand management have been implemented in support of the municipalities that were prioritized. And also we reported previously about the misalignment of bulk and reticulation in municipalities, and we undertook a feasibility studies to assist those municipalities to align the misalignment of bulk and reticulation, and 5 water services authorities were supported with the integration prioritization of strategies arising out of those feasibility studies for alignment of projects in municipal IDPs. And 15 municipalities were also supported with the mainstreaming of labor construction methods in the projects implemented through conditional grants. Yet you'll recall we reported that we allocated 50 million rand to assist municipalities with the mainstreaming of labor intensive construction methods. 15 municipalities have since been supported. And also we have supported 8 districts to improve infrastructure asset management practices. As you know, this is one of the areas that are a priority to address the state of assets in municipalities, and MIC has since been reviewed to make provision for 10% towards repairs and maintenance and 5% towards asset planning. So we're assisting 8 districts to ensure that they take advantage of the MIC program around asset plan management. 10 districts supported the implementation of operation maintenance related activities, and also supported in all the 44 districts to reduce, to improve performance on MIC program and reduce infrastructure backlogs. Of course, featured the 100 learners that were enrolled into the MISA apprenticeship program and 100 students that were awarded bursaries towards technical professions, which MISA has supported. Next slide. Also on the technical skills program, we have supported 519 municipal officials with training in municipal infrastructure management, and also assisted 15 municipalities with the implementation of municipal capacity development plans, and also for the 4 districts, the implementation of integrated infrastructure plans, and also supported municipalities chairperson with the implementation of SPLUMA, as well as a review of the IDPs, and also supported municipalities chairperson with the implementation of solid waste management program, as well as compilation and implementation of infrastructure functionality assessment reports for Alfred Nzo and Capricorn districts. Next slide. Coming to the program 3, which is our second core program. There we had a plan of supporting municipalities with the implementation of ITMS, and 8 municipalities were supported. And also 11 municipalities were also supported with the enhancement of infrastructure procurement practices. And we also developed a report on the state of municipal functionality for infrastructure delivery using input of the municipal infrastructure service delivery functionality model. And also 26 municipalities were supported to pilot implementation of innovative technologies and for solid waste management. You will recall here were awarded, were given in fact 284 million in December to pilot this innovative waste management program, and 26 municipalities have since been supported. And also 9 municipalities were engaged to access alternative funding sources for infrastructure development through DTM, and 5 were supported to plan and implement climate-friendly projects. Next slide. In terms of targets that were not achieved, Chairperson, which are not many, we had planned to enroll 70 experiential learnership in our program, learners in our program, and we could only achieve 39, and 31 could not be enrolled, Chairperson, due to delay in the verification of the criminal record checks and qualifications. Next slide. Also, we had a plan of enrolling 150 young people in the MISA Young Graduate Program, and we managed to achieve 143 youth that were enrolled in the program, and 7 could not be enrolled at a person. And the recruitment of these outstanding 7, of the outstanding 7 to fill the gap was done on time, but due to delays in the qualification verification of these learners, we could not achieve the set 150 target. Next slide. Also, we had planned to enroll 100 municipal officials in the MISA recognition of prior learning program, and we achieved 57, and 43 could not be technically assessed, though they were enrolled, Chairperson. As a result, we could not claim that we have achieved the target because they were not technically assessed because of the delay in the appointment of the service provider. Next slide. Coming to financial performance in the Chairperson. In terms of our financial performance as at 31 March 2022, we had an income share of 638 million, which is made up of the transfers of 628 and the other of 9.39, which is interest received, and as well as LGC TAF funding. The 628 share is made up of 4 tranches from the departments that were allocated to MISA. And also we received 284 million as indicated earlier for innovative waste integrated management program. Hence you see our income is a bit high. And in terms of expenditure against the income deferred above, we managed to spend 566.26. And in terms of how the expenditure was made up, we had employee cost of 178, which is a slight increase due to filling of vacancies if we look at the previous financial year, and the depreciation finance cost of 5 million, which is of course in line with the prior year expenditure, and for contracted services of 220 million. The expenditure, as you can see, is a bit higher as compared to last year. As you know, we had a lockdown which had an impact on the implementation of projects in the last financial year. And also the solid waste and the labor intensive construction initiative also increased our expenditure. Funds that were surrendered to DCOG, the 117 million we reported when we reported the previous with the committee. Funds were returned to DCOG for the prior year surplus, which is 117 million. And general services of 44 million, which is a slight increase due to normalizing of operations after the impact of COVID-19. And our net surplus of 71 million. Next slide. It is our cash flow statement as at 31 March 2022, Chairperson, which I'm not going to bore the committee on, but our closing balance as at 31 March 2022 was 331 million. Next slide. In terms of budget variance report per cost item as at 31 March, in terms of administration costs, you will see expenditure there of 44.8 million, which is in line with the budget. And also, you will see in terms of contracted services, our budget was 368, and we managed to spend 220 million, which is an underexpenditure due to unspent funds from the presidential stimulus package as the funds were received in November 2021. And also the funds that were surrendered, the 17 million, which we reflect them. Employee costs, the budget was 210 and we spent 178. There is an under expenditure of 31 million due to vacancies and recruitment of young graduates, which was delayed, and depreciation of 5 million, which is expended which is in line with the budget. The total budget is 628 and 566 as indicated earlier, the actual expenditure, and 62.6, which is the variance. Next slide. Coming to fruitless and wasteful expenditure, We had interest charge for TV license of 2,000, and also which is a prior year, related to prior year chairperson, and also interest paid to service provider of 525,000. This relates to legal costs, chairperson, relating to travel flag litigation matter, which unfortunately Mr. lost that court case, and we had to pay that 525,000 on legal costs. And we are reporting here that there were no fruitless and wasteful expenditure incurred in the current financial year. And an amount of 581,000 was written off during the year related to SARS penalties and salary overpayments. Next slide. There was no irregular expenditure incurred year to date, and that did not have any regular expenditure at the beginning of the year as well. Next slide. In terms of creditors' age analysis, as at 31 March 2022, you will see, chairperson, that we are paying all our invoices within the 30-day prescribed period, so we have not had a challenge of paying creditors beyond the 30 days. Next slide. And coming to the extent and the cost of private security employed or procured in the past 5 years, for the period 19 December 2017 to 5 May 2018, the expenditure that is indicated was 456,000. And for the period May 2018 to 7 August 2020, the expenditure was 2 million. And for the period 8 August to 7 August 2022, the expenditure was a little bit higher to previous contract. It was 2.5 million, and the previous was 2.3 million. In total, we spent 5.4 million chairperson for the period 2017 to August 2022. 2017 December to August 2022. Next slide. We recommend, chairperson, for the committee to note the quarterly performance report and the financial statement of MISA for the fourth quarter, and also recommend that the committee note the report on the extent and cost of private security employed or procured for MISA over the past 5 years. Thank you very much, chairperson.
Thank you. Can we move to DTA?
Thank you very much, Chairperson, Honorable Chairperson, Honorable members of the committee, Honorable Deputy Minister. Chairperson, also once again, with your permission, I will switch off the video just to make sure that it doesn't interfere with the connectivity for the purposes of the presentation. So the presentation, like the previous two, focuses on the performance of the department in terms of the targets as contained in the APP tabled in Parliament, specifically for the fourth quarter. So we'll talk about the purpose of the presentation. We will then talk about the fourth quarter performance per program, but just a summary first, and then we'll go into a breakdown per program, detailed fourth quarter performance per program, financial performance, and recommendations. What our presentation doesn't include, Honorable Chair, is the issue on spending on security, and that is because it's a shared service between ourselves and our colleagues in DCOC. So in the presentation made by DG DCOC, that slide includes spending for the Department of Traditional Affairs as well. And that is because we have shared buildings, and as members would recall in that presentation, the presentation also spoke about the provision of security to the official residences of the chair and deputy chair of the National House of Traditional and Quiescent Leaders. So that information is already covered in the presentation that is done by our colleagues in the COC. That is the purpose, so we can brief the portfolio committee on our fourth quarter performance report. So if we then go to the next slide, just to show that overview, on the next slide, please move to the next slide. And it will just show that we had a total of 19 targets for the quarter under review, quarter 4 of 21-22, and that all of those targets were achieved. And in the next slide, then we just show a breakdown in terms of the different programs, the number of targets achieved, those that were not achieved, and as indicated there in green, that the total number of targets at the bottom, there 19, and that all of them were achieved. So what follows then, it's a breakdown in terms of the performance per program. The first one is administration, and in administration, as contained in the APP, we have 2 compliance plans. One compliance plan looking at a number of things that we need to do in terms of organizational performance, tabling of strategic plans, of APPs, all those things that are a requirement in terms of law, and the other looking at things that relate to financial compliance, such as payment of suppliers within 30 days, the required reports to National Treasury, all those issues that require state institutions to comply with. So we list them in all those plans and indicate that we need to make sure that we achieve at least 80% of all those activities, and that was achieved as reflected in the report. The next one then goes into the second program, which is research policy and legislation. Those are the targets that we had. Now that we've got the new legislation, the Traditional and Quiescent Leadership Act, we said that we then work with kinships and queenships to make sure that we monitor and support them in the implementation of the things that they need to do as per the Act. And we worked with for the fourth quarter with the 8 kinships that we intended to work with as per the target there. We also said that now that we have the Traditional and Quiescent Leadership Act, we need to begin to look at areas of the Act that need to be elaborated through regulations. And we said that during this financial year, target one set of regulations, which we then did and developed. So we have been able to finalize that, so that as we go into the new financial year, we can then start the process of consultations on those draft regulations. On the next slide, we just indicate that we also said that we will take the TKLA and have a 5-year implementation schedule. I think we did discuss this with the committee before, and the committee also then requested that it be shared with them, which was done. And then we will then indicate that quarterly we'll identify particular areas of the implementation plan to make sure that we implement them. For the fourth quarter, we had identified 4 of those, and we say they were implemented. Under the column achieved there, we just a slight correction that it's TKLA and not CIA in terms of the target that was achieved. CIA is on the next slide. If we go to the next slide, we followed the same approach here, where we took the Act and came up with a 5-year implementation plan, and then broke it down into annual activities. And then for this financial year, then broke it down into quarterly activities. We had identified 3 critical projects and actions that needed to be prioritized during the fourth quarter, and we indicate that we achieved that. In fact, we achieved even 2 more as opposed to the 3 that were targeted. On the next slide, annually we identify particular research projects that we need to pursue so as to enrich our understanding of the sector in which we work. So the research projects that we identified in the APP, we identified the need to do research on the struggles of women and people with disabilities within institutional traditional leadership and traditional communities, and that study was done. And we also targeted doing a study on the culture and heritage economy in traditional communities. That study was also done. On the next slide, we now go to the third program, which is institutional support and coordination. In this one, we have a target about monitoring and facilitating the participation of local houses of traditional and Khoisan leadership in the district development model. And we said that we will work with all the 7 provinces. This obviously excludes the Western Cape, because as at the time of the implementation of this, we did not have those local houses in those institutions. And because we're working through provinces, and the Gauteng province does not have a provincial house, so that explains the number there. So we worked with all the 7 provinces to make sure that we monitor the participation of local houses of traditional leaders in government development programs. Similarly, we said that we will encourage provinces to support the implementation of agrarian revolution programs in traditional communities, and we said that we will monitor all the provinces in the work that they do in this regard. And we said that we will, during the 4th quarter, focus on 2 provinces. That was done. That was KwaZulu-Natal and Gauteng, where we monitored the work that is being done in this area and produced reports on the projects that are being implemented. On the next slide, still with the program 3, institutional support and coordination, there is a section in the Traditional and Khoisan Leadership Act, Section 24, which talks about the promotion of partnerships, that traditional communities may enter into partnerships, and indicates the requirements there. And we said, given the critical importance of this provision, let us develop guidelines that then traditional communities can use when they implement Section 24 of the Act. And those guidelines were indeed done. And then the work that needed to be done around the development of a communal land tenure policy. This obviously is work that is led by our colleagues in the Department of Agriculture, Land Reform and Rural Development. But our target there was to make sure that the institution of traditional leadership is consulted so that they can make their inputs in the processes towards the formulation of a policy in this regard. And we indicate that we're looking at the 7 provincial houses being drawn in to make their inputs, and we say that was done as well. On the next slide, given the critical nature again of local houses of traditional leaders, we said that we will look at their functionality. So what we did previously was to develop a functionality criteria to say, in terms of the TKLA, for us to say local house is functional, what are the functionality criteria that they should meet? And then based on that, we said then we'll apply that applied to the local houses, working with provinces to make sure that reports are produced on the functionality of the local houses and areas of interventions are identified. We had a target of 4 such provinces during the 4th quarter, and that target was achieved. We just indicate those provinces in the last but second column. The next slide is still with this program. It talks about capacity building. And we're saying that we will be providing capacity building for the houses. Our focus was on gender-based violence and femicide during this particular quarter. And we just indicate that it was achieved, and we indicate the workshops that were conducted with the various houses of traditional and Khoisan leadership using the program that we worked on together with the Gender Commission, Equality Commission, to workshop the the institutions of traditional leadership. On the next slide, we then just also indicate that we had targeted working on a plan for the promotion of indigenous languages. So the focus was really more on consultations with sector departments such as arts and culture, such as social development and so on, so that we can then come up with that plan. And that was done, and the plan was finalized by the end of the fourth quarter. And the final one there is about the Customary Initiation Act. We said that we will then take that act and develop a training manual so that the institution of traditional leadership can be trained on the act. So that act, that manual was indeed developed, consulted with stakeholders, and it was finalized. That then, Honorable Chair, takes us to our expenditure report for as at the end of March 2022. So the top section of that slide just indicate in terms of economic classification, summary in terms of economic classification. So if I could point honorable members to the fourth column from the right, which says at the top, final appropriated budget. So it shows that final appropriated budget, the total amount there is 172,690,000. And if we look at the next column next to that, it's about actual expenditure, which is 154 million. And there's a breakdown there in terms of the various items under economic classification. And if we look at percentage spent, it shows that we spent 90% of the appropriated budget. And again, there's a breakdown to show how much, what is the percentage for compensation of employees, percentage for goods and services, and so on, and what the variance is. At the bottom, below that, then we have that information, but we show it in terms of the different programs of the department. I think if we just stay with that column of final appropriated budget, it will show that 172,690,000, actual expenditure still 154,657,000. Percentage spent is 90%, and then the breakdown that just shows that how much was spent. I just need to highlight in the presentation, Honorable Chair, that there is what is called transfer payments as well. So where we do a transfer to the CRL Rights Commission, so there's an amount there of 46 million, which is our transfer. It's part of our vote, but it's a transfer to the CRL Rights Commission. That entire transfer was done, but I believe that the CRL Rights Commission accounts to Parliament directly on that expenditure. Just perhaps a couple of more notes to make, that's in the next slide, in terms of the expenditure analysis. So that previous slide shows that at the end of the reporting period, the cumulative expenditure was 154.737 million, just over 154 million, as I indicated, which translates to 90% of overall spending. And we just indicate that shows an underspending of 18 million overall. And we indicate there that one of the reasons was that as we started the financial year in April 2021, the Commission on Coin Sun Matters had not as yet been established. It has not as yet been appointed, but we had made provision for resources so that once the commissioners are appointed, there will be a budget to support them. Once the commissioners are appointed, there will be a budget in not only to pay for their salaries, but also for their goods and services. But the commission only got appointed in September, so which means that we had 5 months in the financial year where the budget prioritized for the commission was not being spent. So that indeed contributed to the underspending. But we also indicate that other contributing factors, especially on compensation of employees, it's just natural attrition, where somebody leaves for another department, the post becomes vacant. From the time you advertise that post, interviews, approve the appointment of a particular successful candidate, allow that candidate to serve notice wherever they are working, you're looking at, on average, about 4 months. Normally that happens, in which case then you end up experiencing this kind of underspending as caused by natural attrition. We indicate also in the goods and services budget that we had a budget of 39 million, we spent 24 million. And primarily, in addition to the issues one has already elaborated on in terms of the functioning of the Commission on Quay and Sun matters, just the fact that we are functioning under COVID restrictions. So a lot of the work that would have to be conducted physically on the ground, traveling, workshops, physical work, we then had to use alternative approaches, which then limited travel, limited the procurement of venues, and all those kinds of issues, which then contributed to the underspending. But we are out of that now, and the department is back on the ground now, working directly with stakeholders. We also indicate that under capital assets, there was that under expenditure of 1 million rand, and that was money that was meant to be spent on procuring departmental vehicles, but due to the challenges that we had with manufacturers, also linked to the COVID-related challenges, we were not able to procure, and that procurement now is being carried over into the current financial year. That is the presentation, Chairperson, and we are recommending that the committee notes the performance, both in terms of performance reports on predetermined objectives and then expenditure as well. Thank you, Honourable Chair and Honourable Members.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for all the presentations. And I hope we were all listening and taking notes. That will now be the opportunity for members. But before that, if the Deputy Minister might want to say anything before we allow members. GM.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chair. And my apologies, there's construction in my neighboring house. I have tried to request a bit of some silence, but there could be some interjection there and there, but I've requested at least the grinder to stop until around 12 o'clock. My sincere apologies, Chair. I wouldn't have any comments, Chair, for now. Suffice to say that members obviously can quiz what we have brought forth as the quarter report from the department, and we will respond and heed advice as given by the Portfolio Committee. Thank you for the opportunity, Chair.
Thank you very much. Honorable members, it's your turn now to ask, make comments, and I'll take your hands in the order that they come. I see Honorable Teza as number 1. Any other hand? I see Honorable Matumba as number 2. For now, let me take those hands.
Honorable Chair, sorry to interject. I have raised my hand. I don't know if you can't see it. Honorable
I don't see. Yes, Honorable Space, you are number 3. Let me take that order. Honorable Teza.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chair of the Portfolio Committee on Cooperative Governance and Traditional Affairs. Greetings to you and greetings to the DM, greetings to the officials, and greetings to fellow colleagues of the committee. Chair, we note the reports of the of the department and the two entities of the department. Let me start mandiqale chair ndiqale ukuyitya inkomo engasemsileni ubheka enhloko ngokuqala pha kwi Department of Traditional Affairs.
Honorable Ceza, we can't hear you well. I think there's something in your system. Can you speak up?
Okay, let me try and can you hear me now?
At least you are better than the last time. Continue.
Okay. No, I was saying that greetings to you and Chair and greetings to members and the DM and the officials here, DG and the team. And let me start by acknowledging the reports that we have received from the two entities and the department. I will chase and pursue some issues of interest within the presentations, Chair. So, Traditional Affairs Department says that the private security is a shared responsibility between DCOC as stipulated in slide 19 of DCOC's presentation, that a private security company has spent 54 billion 969 163.72. What would have, my question is, what would have been the cost had the private security company in terms of the report on the extent and cost of the security companies for the past 5 financial years, if that private company was insourced? Because I'm saying so, Chair, because there are case studies that show that there's less expenditure in sourcing. You go to Gauteng and in some municipalities where this is done. So what is the position of the department to lessen the expenditure on private service providers in terms of what is happening currently? And then let's move to MISA. So they say that for the four districts, that is on slide 9, supported to improve performance on MIG and reduce infrastructure backlog. In what manner did the support affect rural municipalities in terms of what they are saying there on slide 9? And then they speak to SPLUMA objects that they've introduced municipal spatial plans. How does how does MISA understand the spatial development vis-a-vis private land and the need of rural municipalities to develop industries, local industries to improve revenue, to create jobs, and to discourage migration of residents and improve the economy and thus build the future for the children that are at school in those municipalities, so that they are not able to move in the same manner in which apartheid was providing in terms of the education that is produced in those spheres. And then just on what is the envisaged deadline, Chair, on slide 12, on they talk about 33 achievement of enrolling learners. And I'm interested, what is the deadline in this regard, and what correction measures have they put in place? That is MISA. And then we move to the department. Oh, let's pursue MISA here, Chair. MISA's technical support to municipalities involves ensuring the municipal technical capacity to spend the MIG as the third quarter, 7 billion of the 2021-2022 MIG allocation reported by the municipalities as spent. What is the update in relation to the fourth quarter? And then let's we want to ask the criminal charges report that was asked here, I think, by Honorable Mkhalipi, that the CEO of MISA is implicated in wrongdoing. So we are not, that report hasn't come forth to the committee. What is the explanation for this thing? Because this would look like there's derailing of these processes to allow for the immunity and institutionalization of corruption in state institutions, Chair. The status of corruption cases within the department, officials identified on financial irregularities, corrupt activities during 2016 to 2020. I'm interested, Chair, because it doesn't look like there's disciplinary processes that were put in place. If they were underway, what is the status? Why has the investigation outcome taken this long? And what is the update on that matter? And yes, Chair, and the rest, I will follow up on them as they respond. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Matumba.
He's muted, Chair.
You're muted.
Thank you, Chairperson. Greetings, colleagues. And I would like to start by welcoming the presentations. Chair, I will start by MISA. The presentation, the report is on fruitless and wasteful expenditure. It's really bad, Chair. We can't be paying interest to service provider. We need the reasons. Why are you paying interest to service provider? What was the delay? What caused the delay that made you to pay such large amount of money that should have went to service delivery? And you are paying it on interest. I mean, interest, a simple interest like TV license. What makes you to be slow just to pay TV license in time? I mean, that's bad. Those are the things that we should have been avoiding by paying our people. What is worse is that you spend a lot of your budget on employee-related costs, and we expect your employees to perform. We don't expect you to pay interest on that. This one will cover. It's also on security. Chair, it's very much painful to know that we are spending this amount on security companies. And really, when you go to those securities are suffering. Securities who are guarding in public sector are suffering. They don't get paid in time. Sometimes they don't get paid. They are underpaid. They are suffering. And what we don't understand is why are these departments not hiring securities directly? Why spend millions empowering individuals when these millions can be spent on job security and empowering our people? I don't understand why we are paying
this large amount of money to security companies. On the DCOG fourth quarter performance, we'll go to page 7. Page 7 and page 8. I want to understand achievement on MIG allocation. Are you saying 60% of the allocated MIG or 60? I don't understand. What do you mean by 60% target? Because the target on MIG, it must be 100%. That money must be spent. The area where our people are living, it's underdeveloped, and the MIG allocation they are getting is not enough. And when we are spending less of the MIG, we are saying it is enough and it is more. So MIG, the crisis that we must be having in every report is that MIG is not enough. Municipalities are spending everything in time. So I don't understand. Can we get explanation? What do you mean by 60%? Page 13. Chair, in all reports, all annual reports of municipalities, you can go to almost each and every municipality. All audit reports, there's one problem that you are going to get. This problem is there continuously. Honorable Tembing Kadimini was a mayor. She understands this one way better. Loss of revenue on electricity and water. It can't be that this target is not achieved. This is the target that we should have been focusing on it more, because the main revenue for this municipality is on water and electricity. That is an area where we should have been making sure that we don't lose even a single cent. So it can't be that where we are not achieving is where the problem is, and we don't achieve there. It can. What is it that is making you to fail to achieve this one of water, electricity loss, and water and electricity loss? Chair, page 14, CWP. Yeah, you are saying you have achieved. The question is, are they paid? Because it can't be that you say people have participated, they are not paid, and you say we have achieved. Because people are crying, CWP, we are not getting paid. You are writing achieved. We want to understand from these 273,848 people who participated, how many paid, how many not paid, how many outstanding payments. On top of that, CWP is a job safety net. And it can't be that training, no CWP training conducted. This is a job safety net, and you are not training the participants. I don't understand there. How is it that you find yourself not achieving that part? Then page 19 is speaking to what I've said on the other side, Chair. These millions are many. And really, if you have time, exactly where you are, honorable members, just outside, if you are to go outside now, securities that when you pass through, if you just sit with them and ask them about their working conditions and their salaries, they will tell you things that will make you cry. Places where they are staying, you won't even look twice. Security guards are suffering. And again, the services of security guards, it's a permanent service. We need security today, we'll need security tomorrow. Now the question is, why don't we hire them permanently? Why is it that the clerk, admin, and manager work on permanent basis, and then we go and hire a company to hire securities. Is that not inhuman? Let us not do worse than what apartheid government was doing to securities. My own grandfather was working as a security guard for public works. He was guarding in clinics, in stadiums, and he got his salary from public works like any other government worker. And when he retired, he got his pension. At some point, when I was growing, I didn't know that man was a security guard because we were living a better life from a security guard. But today, security guards are being hired in a different way. They are passed from one service provider to another. On top of that, they don't have a pension. I think this must change. 39 million, 54 million, check. This thing of security guards, it must be addressed. This department must tell us what are they going to do to absorb these security guards permanently. Thanks.
Honorable Space.
Good morning, Chairperson. Good morning, colleagues. Chairperson, mine, and thank you, Honorable Matumba has mentioned part of what I want to address, and that's the community works program. Chair, but before I start, Chair, I've been raising this, and it's not what pertaining to this. Our committee is not being live streamed like all the other committees. I don't understand why, because there are people outside, the broader public, who wants to know and listen to what the issues are we're addressing. And I don't know what the issue is that our committee in particular, are not being live streamed. You can just address it. Back to the issues at hand. Chair, with all due respect for me, and I'm normally a very optimistic person, but some of these targets are actually not very useful to us. I'm starting with CWP. It's all great to brag about, reaching your target and going even beyond that. The reality is, Chairperson, I know that because I zoom into CWP a lot in areas across the country. It is not the situation on the ground. Maybe there are 270,000 people in the program. The question is, Chair, we need a breakdown per province, per district, of really how many people are actively participants in this program. I can tell you now, and the TG, that there are people who have not been paid, but they are written down or recorded as active participants in the CWP. The DM knows. I've sent her information on one person only. That person hasn't been paid. Upon investigation, she's on record. She hasn't been paid. Her details are being connected to a person that is not her. It's not even a bank detail. So someone is getting paid who's not even in the program, and the person who's actually doing the work every day is not getting paid. Also, the department sometime revealed, of the question I asked, that they paid 900 and odd people, ghost workers, people who are deceased. We don't know, Chair, if there are even any such people. Maybe there are still lots more left like that. So to come and tell us that you have overachieved, that does, and we know for a fact it doesn't translate on the ground, it's just useless. So we can't have it. Then, Chair, to say training is not achieved, if I'm correct, there is now a new implementing agents that will be brought back or brought on board. I want to understand how training has not even been achieved for the ones, and then already we are having others coming on board. And Chair, we need to also find out these implementing agents that are not achieving, why are we contacting them again when we're experiencing so many problems with them? So, Chair, for me, it's good to give us information, but that information is useless because this doesn't translate to the real situation on the ground. And I can be challenged on this because I have the information. So we need a serious zoom into this problem. From MISA, Chair, I would like to understand sort of a breakdown on across the board and across the country in all provinces, how this has been spread. And I think I've asked it before, specifically the bursaries, specifically the support and training programs and learnerships. I want to understand, to just get a sense of, is this the spread or, equally across the country? Does it reach all provinces, or is it just particular provinces? That, Chair, is all I would like to ask for now. Thank you.
I see Honorable Mbumza.
Thanks, Chairperson. Good morning, Chair, and the honorable members, the DM, and all officials of the department and the entities. Chair, must apologize, I cannot put on my video because I can see that the network is not that stable. Am I audible, Chair?
Yes, you are.
Thank you very much, Chair. Starting with the presentation from the Department of Traditional Affairs, particularly the implementation of the Remodeled Agrarian Revolution program to traditional communities, of which the intention was to support the socio-economic being of such traditional communities through this very important particular program. The presentation indicates that they are monitoring 8 provinces in the actual implementation on the monitoring 8 provinces in supporting traditional communities to implement this program. In their monitoring capability, what is the department's remedial action in relation to where in these pilot programs? Particularly, I know that in the traditional community of Emaklesibeni, where this program is a pilot, as we speak of now, it has collapsed. What then in their monitoring capability are the remedial action to revive such programs that have collapsed as a result of dispute within communities, traditional communities? Chair, the Department of Cooperative Governance and Traditional Affairs, in the second quarter in March, in their briefing to this very committee, the department had indicated that it was likely to underspend on disaster relief grants, as these funds are set out to allocate to municipalities where disaster occur and are only transferred after depletion of the municipality's budget for disaster relief. What is therefore the update on this in the light of the May and April 2022 flood disaster seen in the provinces of KwaZulu-Natal, Eastern Cape, and Northwest? Furthermore, the fourth quarter report is reflecting to us that there will be an underspending of 4.1% on disaster relief, since these funds are only transferred once provinces and municipalities have depleted their allocation. And how is this possible? Because in the aftermath of the April-May flood disasters, has been a number of municipalities depleting their allocances and struggling to obtain post-disaster funding. To Mr. Chair, Mr. has previously advised that it would continue in the last quarter presentation, that they would continue engaging with the National Treasury to transfer funds, the rollovers, back to MESA, as they were already committed. And at that particular time, MISA was indicating that there were engagement between MISA and Treasury and were reportedly ongoing. What is the latest program on this matter, Chair? Again, MISA, in its presentation, is indicating that it supported 10 district municipalities with the implementation of operation and maintenance activities. In the light of this, as part of their technical support, in the light of this, the current leaks, whether it's sewage or water, arising out of poor operation and maintenance in a number of municipalities. Now, MISA is indicating that it's providing this support only to 10 district municipalities. What about the 34 district municipalities? Are they actually on good standing on this particular matter? Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Mbumza. Honorable Teza said he left something. So before we allow responses, Honorable Teza.
No, apologies, Chair, to the committee members and everyone. And thank you to yourself for allowing me. Chair, the issue was relating to the DTH in terms of the knowledge of the customary initiation as we went on oversight of the initiation season in the Eastern Cape. When we went in there on oversight, you would remember, Chair, that even some of the Ingcibi, lest I generalize, some of Ingcibi's bezingena lwazi ngalo mthetho, which questions the capacity of the PICC to conduct workshops in villages and to ensure that there are precautionary measures in place to curtail deaths in those areas where the custom is practiced. So to locate all necessary items at a traditional council okanye komkhulu, so that they are equally available to prevent deaths during the season. That the provincial initiation and the initiation legislation of the Eastern Cape is not harmonized. Chair, there is an amount of backwardness, even amongst the traditional, the chairpersons of provinces and districts, and you go at a local level. And this would permeate to community members having to commit these illegalities. Because one, there is no awareness. And we can't have a situation where whenever these things are done, Chair, there must be a service provider for everything. There must be something that we are getting, even about the life of our children who are going through these things. Number two, Chair, you can't have a leader, let alone of a province, equating a situation that endangers children, which is illegal initiation schools, Chair, as equating it to a learner-driver situation, wherein he is justifying the age, whereas the customary initiation act is clear about the age of 16. Then you have a leader there that is saying that on the sites, that it is the same thing as teaching a child, because the car will not endanger. Once a child knows how to drive properly, you will not be in danger, because you'll be observing a defensive driving if it's properly taken through. So here you have a situation, you can see there is a leadership vacuum on understanding the essence of what it is to save lives in terms of the objects of the Constitution, Chair. So I'm asking fervently to the department, what awareness campaigns have they done to make sure that the PIC, what oversight mechanism have they done to make sure that the PICC harmonizes and extricate backwardness within this leadership, and then ensure that customary CIA is implemented in terms of what should be happening there. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you very much for the questions and comments. I will now hand over to the department to respond. Over to you.
Good afternoon, Chairperson, and good afternoon to the members once again. And I want to thank everyone for the questions that have been asked. Chair and members, I am joined by the team, so I have allocated some of the responses. I will start. The first question from Honorable Matumba, just with regards to the disciplinary process and the status of the investigations and the rationale or the reasons why they're taking so long. Perhaps just to say that we as a department did provide to the committee a report on the 5th of April with this update. I know it would appear that there has been no appetite to follow through on these reports, but it's important to note that they go back to 2016, 2017. And we have since subjected the people to consequence management. And of course, we are at the tail end of one of the let me call it the major processes that relate to 3 of our senior managers. And where there's criminal investigation requirements, Chair, we've also ensured that we pass that through to the Hawks. The second question was from also Honorable Matumba. It related to security and the use of the service providers to provide our security services rather than creating meaningful employment for prospective employees. So perhaps here is just to say that we actually have a current mix, or we apply a hybrid approach in the department where we do have permanently employed security other than the security institutions that we've engaged to assist us with security matters. And the rationale for us is simply that our current cost of employment would not allow for us to be able to carry the full costs for permanently employed security guards. And of course, if you look at our budget over the next 3 years as well, it's a budget that diminishes specifically for cost as it would relate to employment of employees. We also then believe that it's a more cost-effective approach for us to utilize based on our budget allocations. Then there is a question that also relates to, there's 2 more questions, Chair. One was from the Honourable Spes on CWP. So I would like to ask Mr. Pretorius to respond to all those questions. And then also the disaster-related questions to be responded by the acting DDG there, Amen. So if I could hand over to Peter.
Thank you. Now you can deploy your team anyhow to respond.
Thank you, DG, and good morning, Honourable Chair, Honourable members, Deputy Minister and colleagues. And as far as the targets that we have in our report indicate, these are all participants that actually got paid, Honourable Speaker. We can provide a detailed breakdown of the actual number of participants that are getting paid every month in every province, in every site. We can provide that to the committee. It is true that in the past, especially in the recent past, we struggled a lot with paying participants on time. We had challenges with the system that is hosted at the State Information Technology Agency. However, I'm sure you would have noted that over the past 2 months, we've finished paying all participants before the end of each month, which is indeed also the target that we've set for ourselves. The only exceptions would be where participants would have changed their banking details during the course of a month, and those banking details were not updated. There's normally a few hundred participants every month that do not get paid on time because of changes in banking details. But the number indicated are participants that actually got paid through the CWP program, and we can provide you with the monthly data then on how many gets paid per province and per site. We really hope now that we've addressed the issue of participants getting paid late, and I think the past 2 months showed that those efforts are paying off. In terms of ghost workers, it is quite true from previous audit findings that there were quite a number of deceased participants being paid. However, the Auditor General will confirm in the report that we will be discussing with the Portfolio Committee in the next few months that there's been a significant reduction. And in the few instances where deceased participants are still getting paid, the money is recovered directly from the implementing agents, so the department does not bear the cost of those participants. I think at the last count, there was about 100,000 to 130,000 rand paid over a 6 months period to deceased participants, and that 130,000 rand has been recovered from the implementing agents. So there has been a significant reduction. Then we also, the comments about the training, it is when we appointed the new contracts for implementing agents in October last year, we introduced very strict rules about procurement, as this was a challenge in the previous contract, and the way in which implementing agents procure, which required implementing agents before they procure to first refer their procurement process to the department so we could verify that the process is indeed compliant. That unfortunately then led to delays in procurement, which is why we did not meet the training target. So the training target is that 10% of participants must be trained every year, and we then also hope that in future, as we continue to reduce overhead costs, we channel those savings we have. In the past, we channeled those savings to increase the actual value of stipends paid to participants, but in future that we will also increase the number of participants that can be trained. And it also relates then in the new contract into the usefulness of the training. So our efforts in future will also then go into making sure that the training that is being offered to participants actually benefits them and provides them with an opportunity then to, in future, find opportunities to exit the program so they can enter more permanent work opportunities. I believe those were all the questions related to CWP. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chair. And if I could then call upon Ane, with your permission.
Yes.
Good afternoon, Honourable Chairperson and Honourable members. I just want to respond to the question with regards to the disaster relief funding. I've also switched off the video to save bandwidth, if that is in order. The previous financial year, there was an underspending with regards to disaster relief. And it is true that it is because of provinces and municipalities first need to use their own funds in terms of the disaster management legislation, and then they can apply for funding. So it can be applied for from the provincial and municipal disaster response grant. And if I could just refer to this year's allocation, there was an allocation of 45.3 million and 371.4 million respectively for this financial year. And at the moment, because of the floods in KZN, all those funds have been depleted. So it is really a matter of, when in the financial year the disasters occur, when those funds are allocated and how they are being applied for by the municipalities and the provinces. So it is provided for in the in the legislation, and we have to deal with it in terms of the grant funding. I think that deals with the question with regards to the expenditure of the previous year, and also referring to the floods of this year in terms of the allocation of the funding, and that it is now depleted. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. We've covered the questions for DCOG. If I could then hand over to Lisa, CEO, with your permission, Chair. Thanks.
Yes.
Thank you very much, Chair. I think it's my turn to respond.
Yes.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. I also have a team, Chairperson, that will assist in providing responses. DDG Alan Zimba and Ms. Fezeka Nombembe, the CFO. I will start, Chairperson, with the questions raised by Honorable Teza with regard to the 44 districts that were supported. In what manner did the support affect rural municipalities? Chairperson, as the committee knows, the MISA mandate in the main is focused on medium to low capacity municipalities, of which the majority will be rural districts. And in our support, therefore, the majority of municipalities that our support affect are rural district municipalities. But you will see that we have supported 44 in the sense that if you look at the MIC program, it affects about 219 municipalities. And within the 219 municipalities, they will fall within the 44 districts. And there we have deployed engineers. And over and above that, we work with the department in terms of appraising the plans, the implementation plans coming from municipalities, ensuring that those plans are implementable and fall within the MIG program, and also assist municipalities with the monitoring and project management support when delivering the projects that are implemented through MIG. So we do have a detail that we can share with the honorable members on the actual support rendered on the 44. And how does MISA understand the spatial development versus, of course, the need for municipalities to build industries, build revenue, and so forth? In answering the question, Chair, I would say, as you know, there is a nexus between the spatial planning and engineering support, and MISA would then deploy planners, town and regional planners, to assist with the spatial side of the implementation of the municipal programs. And in the main, the aim is to ensure that the infrastructure that is then developed flowing from the spatial plan contribute to building of the economy of the municipalities, including the revenue. So that's how we then contribute. And research deadline on slide 12, I think on the presentation, Chairperson, we are indicating there that the process to conclude the enrollment of learners in the program shall be concluded during the first quarter of 2022-2023, pending finalization of the verification of criminal record checks and qualifications. So I think it answers then the question. Then DDG Alan will respond to the next question around the update in relation to MIG expenditure for the fourth quarter. And then there was a question relating now specifically to me in relation to the Matole matter. Chairperson, we did provide a report to the committee. If perhaps members did not receive the report, I think it can be made available again. I think it was submitted. Thanks, Chairperson. And also, questions relating to fruitless and wasteful expenditure. CFO will respond, as well as expenditure on security. Also, with regard to another piece, breakdown of spread of bursaries, trainings, and learnership programs. We do have a report on a piece we can share with the members in terms of the breakdown, but we always endeavor to ensure that we spread our support to all the provinces. Of course, the priority will always be the rural and the poor districts of our country. From Honorable Mpumza, Mr. previously advised that we would be continuously engaging with National Treasury. Yes, we are engaging with National Treasury, and we had a meeting recently where the Minister convened a meeting with the Minister of Finance on the very same matter. And we are awaiting National Treasurer's response. We are told it is sitting, the response is sitting with DTG at National Treasury. So anytime soon we can then get the response from the final response from National Treasury. Mr. supported 10 districts with implementation of OMM. DG Alan will respond on that, as well as the question relating to the leaks around the arising out of sewer, and what about the 34 district if we only supported 10. I will hand over to DG Alan, then followed by CFO, President Mbembe. Thanks, Chairperson.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, CEO. Greetings to you, Honorable Chair, and to all the honorable members, to the Honorable Deputy Minister, the accounting officers and colleagues. Thank you very much, CEO. With respect to the MIG expenditure at the end of the fourth quarter, the countrywide expenditure was at 60% of the total. That was end of March, which was the fourth quarter for ourselves as provincial and national governments. However, Honorable Chair, for the municipalities, they will then be assessed as at the end of June for the end of the municipal financial year. We commit to get that final report from the MIC unit chaired by Verna in DCOC and submit it to the committee with your permission, Honorable Chair. That was the first question. The second one on the O&M activities from Honorable Mpumza. Indeed, in our annual performance plan, we have only provided 10 municipalities that we are indicating that we intend to support. And the reason why we have only 10 instead of 44 is because of the limited capacity that we have internally, Honorable Chair and Honorable Members. But to answer the question directly, what about the other 34? Indeed, the situation is not good in total of the O&M activities. However, Honorable Chair, what we do as part of our work, we do assessments, and where there is direct support needed, even if it is outside the term, we provide support. For example, we have already deployed a team, which is part of the national team supporting Mangahung, which was not part of those 10 as much as the district space in terms of the DDM. So the direct answer is it's because of the limited capacity that we have. And one of the reasons is actually that funding issue, the question that was raised, which was not approved by National Treasury as part of the retention of surplus fund. The other question was from Honorable Spies on the spread. On the spread of our programs, I will start with the experiential learners. The experiential learners, the spread, we endeavor to spread it nationally. However, we always have a challenge, Honorable Spies, in the sense that we always have a challenge in the sense that as much as we would like the spread to be equitable countrywide, when we engage with municipalities, we find that municipalities are not keen on taking these experiential learners whom they have to then ensure that they are learning and they are not yet qualified. That's on the experiential learners. They prefer those programs where the learners actually assist in the work. For example, the young graduate program, where the learners, they are actually doing the work while they are also trying to register. So on the experiential learners, we do have a challenge of mismatch as much as we try to cover nationally. And we find that some municipalities, they end up not having these learners because of that mismatch. They don't want to accept experiential learners. But on the young graduates, we try to spread nationally, but the way we approach it to be transparent and fair, we go to all the institutions of higher learning for bursaries, we advertise there. For young graduates, we advertise nationally, and we go through a transparent process to try and cover nationally. We do have a list, Honorable Chair and Honorable Speaker, that we can provide of all our learning, our capacity building programs to show where our apprentices, where our experiential learners, where are our young graduates, and even bursaries. And with your permission, we can provide that information. Thank you very much, Honorable Chair.
Thank you. The next one.
Sorry, Chair, if I may.
Therefore, will respond. Therefore, Chair will respond on the finance questions, and Ms. Refilo Matabate, our Chief Director, Corporate Services, will also respond on the question raised by Honorable Matumba on the security. Over to you, Therefore.
Yes, who is speaking now?
Thank you very much, CEO. Good morning, Honorable Chair, Honorable Members. our Honorable Deputy Minister, the DGs, CEO and colleagues. Chair, I will be touching on the frivolous and wasteful expenditure. The first one is in relation to TV licenses. That one, it was mainly because the statements and the invoices were sent to an official that left the organization. And unfortunately, there was no one to take over. It was the head of ICT. So there was that lapse in terms of the time. Then when we did a follow-up, we realized that there was that charge. However, this one, it should be completed pretty soon. The investigation internal audit has concluded. The report is at draft stage. It's just awaiting discussions with the relevant management. Then it will obviously make recommendations. If there are any officials that are found liable, we will make sure that we do recover that 2,000 plus from the relevant officials, and consequence management will be effected accordingly. The second one, that is around $500,000, is in relation to a litigation. There's a case that we had against a service provider, travel management company, of which there was a collusion between employees, I think at Cooperative, because we had participated on that contract back then. We took them to court because they were claiming more than we were owing them. But MISA lost the case, and the interest now is as a result of the court ruling that we were instructed to pay over to the service provider. So it was not necessary delays on payments of invoices. It did not emanate from that direction. Thank you very much, Honorable Chair.
Okay, the last one from Misa.
Refila, Matabate, sir, will answer. Thank you.
Good, thank you, CEO. Good morning, Honorable Chair and honorable members, and good morning, colleagues. Chair, I will deal with a question on security. And Chair, we as MISA, over the past 5 years, we've spent 5.4 million on security services, and this was paid to 3 contractors over the 5 years. And the Chair, on the question of what future plans are to incorporate security officers into the MISA establishment, we noted the concerns that have been raised by the honourable members about how security officers are treated by these private companies. And Chair, this being a policy discussion that we then need to have further, having considered and heard the concerns raised by the members. We will then, moving forward, go back to the drawing board and look at how we then will deal with the matter. But also, Chair, this is one that we would have to discuss and agree on between ourselves as MISA, DCOP and DTA, because it's one that when we eventually move to a portfolio building, there would have to be consistency on how the matter is addressed. We would not want a situation where one institution has security officers as employees and another uses a private company. So, Chair, what I'm saying is that there would have to be discussions on this matter internally within MISA, but also within the portfolio, so that moving forward we have a consistent way of dealing with the matter. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you. I assume that concludes MISA response. DG.
No, thank you, Honorable Chair, and just my apologies. We still had to table a response on the comments that were made by Honorable Matumba on the MEC and the percentage that we have placed as a target. And then also just on his comments that he made around the loss of revenue water. The revenue loss, on water and electricity, and the focus that we need to have on that area. So I want to say to the honourable member that yes, indeed, he's right. We need to place a lot more emphasis or focus on this because indeed municipalities need to collect the revenue that they should. But I'm also joined in the meeting by Mr. Sigaba, and he can also perhaps just point out some of the challenges that we faced in this regard. Just with regards to the MIG itself and the percentage, I think at this juncture has arises, should I say, because the financial year end for national is March, whilst municipalities, their financial year ends in July. So when we come back to report for the first quarter, you'll find that the MIG then target increases or shows that we've achieved 92%. So I think that's just what creates the reporting percentages that we do outline, Chair. So if I could just ask Mr. Sigaba to respond on the second part. Thank you, Chair, and apologies once again.
Thank you, DJ. Good morning to Honorable Chair and Honorable members and our Deputy Minister and colleagues. Honorable Matumba had reflected on the non-achievement around non-revenue water and non-revenue electricity. Chair, the department had sought to understand, the extent to which water service authorities and the licensed electricity distributors, how they were prioritizing the reduction of this non-revenue water and non-revenue electricity, for the financial year in question, that is 2021-22. This undertaking was imperative because we wanted to provide the department with a clear picture of how municipalities are reflecting and responding to the challenges of non-revenue water and non-revenue electricity. What we did is when we made this decision in other words, to monitor the municipalities, whether they are reporting on this, was they had already adopted their own sort of budget. And hence they didn't put this target in their SDBIP. That is the only reason why then we in other words, we had not achieved, because we decided to monitor this, but already municipalities had already adopted their budget. And we didn't indicate to municipalities that they must put this target in their own service delivery budget and implementation plans. But we have since then discussed with the National Treasury so that this also becomes an indicator. So but we do have a detailed report that's about 50 pages that we can share with the committees that actually deals with all the sort of municipalities, so to say. Thank you, Chair.
Can we now move to traditional affairs? DG.
Yeah, thank you very much, Honorable Chair. I'm switching on the camera because I see in the chat platform, Honorable Space has posted a message saying, "Can we please see people?" And so that's why I'm switching on the camera. Two comments, Chair. There was a question raised by Honorable Mbumza about the projects that we monitor in provinces and traditional communities. I think if you look at some of the challenges that this projects experience, they vary. They are challenges of resource shortages. There are challenges of capacity. There are challenges of disputes, as the Honorable Bumza indicates. So our role, we really come in as firstly an agent of good practices, because being able to move from one province to another, seeing what is being done in one community and the lessons that can be learned from that community, we are able to share those lessons. But what we also do, I think, in terms of resources, because we don't have the resource envelope ourselves to assist them. So to the extent possible, we are then able to facilitate partnerships. For example, I think the partnership that has been there with the Solidarity Fund has been quite useful in supporting some of the initiatives. But where there are disputes that require interventions as well, we try to work as closely as possible with our provincial counterparts because ultimately they are closer to the scene and should be able to intervene quicker. But as these matters come to our attention, we enlist the support of our provincial counterparts so that they can assist. But I know that there are specific instances where ourselves, working with Deputy Minister Babela, have had to go directly on the ground where there were these kinds of disputes, as Honorable Mbumza is pointing out. I think one of the exciting initiatives that we have been discussing recently is that of work that where the National School of Government has developed a particular training program on socio-economic development in traditional communities. They've piloted that with few traditional leaders in the Eastern Cape, and we had discussions about how we can then just broaden that so that it can benefit a lot of other members of the traditional institutional traditional leadership, and they've agreed with us that will be done. We just have to bring our provincial counterparts on board, and it's a very interesting program where you come from an initial couple of days of the training, but you go away to apply the knowledge that you have gained, and then you come back for the last period of the training, and then you complete it. It's a specifically designed program by the National School of Government on socio-economic development in traditional communities, and we continue to explore these kinds of opportunities so that we are able to assist these initiatives. The Honourable Gaza raises a painful issue, Honourable Chair, in terms of cultural initiation. And there's a direct question about ultimately is there awareness raising that has been done. I think with the coming into effect of the Customary Initiation Act in September last year, I think that I don't think that has left enough time for enough awareness raising to be done. If you look at the act coming into effect in September, and the act saying the National Initiation Oversight a committee should be appointed within 3 months, so that by end of November it would be in office. That's what was done. The minister appointed the NIOC by the end of November, and they started in earnest to then start working with PICCs. And I know that the National Initiation Oversight Committee started arranging to engage directly with each one of the provincial initiation coordinating committees. But I think what has then become a problem as well was that because the legislation says the term of office of the oversight committee and the coordinating committee is aligned to that of the national and provincial houses. And as members would recall, the term of office of the National House ended in June. So which means that it created a bit of instability there as we now, following the establishment of the new houses, provincial and national, that the process of reconstituting the National Initiation Oversight Committee as well as the Provincial Initiation Coordinating Committee has now started. So it in a sense interrupted the momentum around the awareness raising. And I would agree with Honourable Gaza that there is really more that needs to be done. And I think given what the National Initiation Oversight Committee had started, that once re-established, I think we can only expect that there will be more and more awareness raising, so that these kinds of issues, which in a sense also relate to resistance to some of the issues introduced by the legislation. The Honourable Gaza gives the example of the issue of age limit. I mean, we saw in another province where the province even wrote to the minister, asking the minister, can we be allowed to go below the age that is required in terms of the CIA? And then, of course, the minister was an emphatic no, that you can't do that. The legislation says this, a child as defined in the Children's Act. You are not going to get a deviation from that. So it's that part of that ongoing awareness raising, engagement, education that will have to take place. But that momentum will now have to be regained now that we've got the new houses of traditional and equestrian leadership having been established, which then creates a basis for the constitution of the PICCs and the National Initiation Oversight Committee, and then the rest of the program can then unfold. Thank you very much, Chair, Honourable Chairperson. I hope I was audible, Honourable Chair.
Who is speaking without unmuting myself? You were when you ended, but I was then saying this was winding up the responses. I would imagine there might be follow-ups, but I'm the first one to follow up. I'm saying for DCOC, I think this matter has been raised. This thing of a non-payment of community works program. We don't have platforms to engage on some of this, but one would imagine that what we are testing is responsiveness when issues get raised. And to a point where we must be satisfied that there is responsiveness, not for us, but for communities that we represent. So this thing of non-payment of CWP workers, I think we must find a way to close it and make sure that it functions without anyone having to raise. Now, the last one I thought I should raise as a member of parliament is this thing of, what is this? Is this CRIP5s for ex-councillors? So there's one member from my constituency who keeps on asking me, he can't get his his PI, what is this? But I think you have noted it. And we have been sending the name of this person to some person we don't know, but it keeps on coming back. Now I can imagine that it might not be the only person who has that problem. So anyone who has got, not necessarily to respond here, response should be by action. So that if we see one individual problem, it then can indicate that there's a problem, and the response is not more about telling us, it's more about action. So that is just that one. Honorable members, if there are any follow-ups. I see Honorable Matumba.
Me too, sir, Chair.
And Honorable Space and Honorable Teza. I'm not sure, Honorable Mpumza, whether it's the old hand, but you indicate. Honorable Matumba.
No, thanks, Chair. I would like to thank Ms. Refilo Matavata on her answer on security, even though she didn't cover everything. But you know what I have expected from department on the one on I raised on page 19. I mean, the answer was on cost-effective approach, based on a cost-effective approach that this is what we can do in order to save money. But the last time we asked the minister, she came with the municipality that said we can save 15 million per month if we are to cut service providers. But what is more painful? It's nothing is being said except by Ms. Refilwe Mathabane to say we are going to be involved on well-being of the security guards. Because no one, these security guards do not even have a union that can represent them. I've seen security guards working for 3 months, no salary, but service provider is getting money. Securities are suffering. At least one should have said, no, we are going to come up with mechanism to make sure that securities are paid better. We are going to come up with a benchmarking of saying this is how much securities must be paid and this is how we can resolve the problem. Because when security go to the municipality say go to the service provider, and the service provider just fire them at a go. So the question is, what is it that you are going to do to make sure that there is well-being of this service of security guards? And the cost-effective approach, that one, I don't understand what you are saying by cost-effective, because it is expensive to hire security companies than to hire securities direct. If you are to hire securities guard direct, you are going to save money, you are going to create, to provide for job security. And on MISA, Chair, at some point, I'm even tempted to say MISA must close shops and the money directed to MISA must go to municipalities direct. I mean, how do you have under expenditure due to vacancies and a failure to recruit young graduates when young people are looking for jobs like this? How do you say funds surrendered was not budgeted for? I mean, every department, every institution is looking for funds and you are surrendering funds because not budgeted for. Can't you have ways, mechanisms to budget for money that you have with you? I mean, underspending, it's something else. Every department is looking for money and you are underspending. And lastly, Chair, this one we have to look into. It cannot be that we continue with securities that are not hired directly by departments when the apartheid government, the government that used to hate us with everything, was employing securities directly, paying them, giving them benefits, and having them retiring on pension. It cannot be that we do to Black people worse than what was done to them by the apartheid government. Securities must be absorbed directly. These stories of saying we are going at the organogram and what, it doesn't hold any water, because the money that you are paying to service provider, you can put in and use it to pay salaries. You will save up and it will be better for everyone. The story doesn't hold water. Absorb securities directly. Securities must not work for tender people who abuse them every day. Thank you.
So the next speaker is Honorable Cesar.
Thank you very much, Chair. Very quickly, the DG of Cooperative is going to expose herself by being a person who deals with issues from a malicious compliance point of view. In that, here is a question of principle. that you've got a situation that when your department is supposed to save money through the insourcing of the security guards, you don't take that opportunity to respond scientifically. Because we ask the question, we even give you the numbers here that are written, that particular security company has eaten to the coffers of the state. And the question, the answer should be based on what is the action that will be taken by the department in order to curtail the situation, and while allowing, in terms of Section 10 of the Constitution, which maintains that every person has a right to dignity, and that dignity must be protected. And I don't know why do we overlook some of the objects of this Constitution when it comes to Black people and their dignity. At this particular time, if we are to say that we are a listening government and a progressive developing state and so forth, really we must get, Chair, to a point of even changing the legislation, because I believe that the EFF has the outsourcing bill in Parliament, which was not supported. And I think we should reawaken this particular principle as a committee, so that we are not seen as people who sit in committees and not change people's lives, Chair. We're here, we are hearing the same figures. The same figures talk about 70 learners, and then it talks about 33 achieved in terms of what it says in slide 12. And then we do not get proper responses in terms of that. I asked a question about corruption of 3 cases in the department that are not finalized. What is the disciplinary process? Is it underway? If it's underway, can they provide the relevant details? Because I even said, Chair, we are going to look like people who are promoting immunity of the officials from prosecution. And I need a report. And if a report of a COO is available, it must be sent to the group so that we can all access it. It must not be something that is mysterious somewhere. And that should be a different report from the one that we're asking, pertaining to the 3 cases within the of financial irregularities within the department. And so we really urge the department to be vigilant on these issues when they respond, please. Where is the public management? On slide 12, because the DG explains why 33 out of 52 municipalities were able to lose water. I mean, where is the public management of the municipality? Because it is the one that deals with all those things of refuse removal. What stability measures have the department taken to ensure that municipalities do not lose on electricity and water? Because they should have been insourced anyway, Chair. Even those services of reticulation, we have a situation in Guyana of reticulation that has stopped. There is no water that is going there for 6 villages, Chair. Up until now, in Hosani traditional communities there, affecting six villages. Because of the tender system the corruptibility of that system allows for people not to be monitored, for those projects not to be monitored and evaluated. It also allows for political connections in which some of the officials, and this information is public, you can go to any media house. You can go to the Auditor General's reports, that they are directly connected in benefiting on this project. How about insourcing these so that while people are the department and the provinces, the metros, the municipalities, the districts have internal capacity to deliver on their mandate on time and with quality. Because also quality in the process is compromised. Apart from the fact that it empowers individuals and leave disempowered communities. And while that particular project has stopped, somebody else is on another tender in another province. In the same manner in which there are no consequences for wrongdoing, people resign before the investigation. Section 106 reports are implemented against them. They resign and then you find them in another. It's a mess. And the department must fix this mess. And it must be seen to be changing these circumstances for service delivery and the quality that should couple the delivery of services. Thank you, Chair, for the opportunity.
Honorable Space.
Chairperson, thank you very much. Chair, I sometimes wonder if it's even useful to ask questions when your questions are misinterpreted and not responded to. Mr. Pretorius responded to my question, but it was not what I asked. It's not what I referred to. As much as there's a problem with paying participants, the issue is not, you can pay people, but the question is, are these people actually actively participants in the program? And that is what is found a lot on the ground, that there's record of people working in the program and monies are being paid, but they are not actively in the program. And so it can bolster up the totals that are given to us, but that's not the real situation on the ground. And if there is not a willingness and a seriousness to address the issues that we so consistently report about in this committee, I do not see why we are asking these questions. At some point, sometimes people must admit there is a serious problem and that we work together in solving that problem. And not only respond because there is a reply needed. And that's what I find. If a person cannot even put their camera on for us without an apology, I wonder if really we are going to be listened to. If a person cannot respond to your queries when you send them queries, I'm asking myself, are we really getting somewhere? And that's how I feel today, Chair. We are not raising things in vain or because we want to sound important. We are raising things because on a daily basis, these things are brought under our attention, and we are the people who are seen to be able to convey this, because we are being put in positions or elected in positions representing people who count on us. But if your officials in the department doesn't understand that, has no empathy, it's not going to help, it's not going to work, and we're not going to get nowhere, and we're going to get the same old answers over and over again. And that, Chairperson, is what gets to me in this committee, that we are sometimes just taken for a ride. Thank you.
Chair,
Chair.
August ngaphi ngoMathunya?
Chair.
Matumba, I was going to allow Honorable Mbumza. I don't know whether you want to, what do you want? It's another follow-up.
Yeah, Chair, it's just a quick one before Honorable Umza come
Okay,
in.
let's get that quick one. Yes.
Yes, isn't it that we must also assist in the electricity laws? Chair, the rise of people who are selling illegal electricity in South Africa is on the rise. And our people are the ones who suffer most because when municipality and ESCOM find out, they switch off for them and they have to pay around 6,000. So can the departments go and really investigate people who are selling this illegal electricity because it is in their offices and our people become victims because they are poor, they end up buying this electricity. It will assist them in electricity laws. Can they investigate and make sure that they arrest those who are selling illegal electricity in their offices? Thanks.
Thanks. Honorable Mpomza.
Thanks, Chair. Chair, actually, whether amplifying whatever, the question raised by Honorable Matunjwa. During our outreach in Port St. John's, communities had raised that some particular people are buying 200 units of electricity for 500 rand. And then he said that this electricity is bought from Gauteng in Port St. John's. I'm saying then, I'm amplifying the point raised, the question raised by Honorable Matunjwa that it needs some investigation. Chair, in the last quarter, whilst I was raising my questions, Chair, I missed this one, that in the last quarter, when the committee, or when the department was briefing us as the committee, we were informed that 39 districts, District 1 district plans for 6 metros and 33 districts had been completed, which implied that 13 plans were still pending finalization. What would be the update in this regard, Chair? Again, Chair, on the transfer to the department and MISA, COCTA and MISA, DCOC and MISA, through their transfers, an RBIG scheme was initiated in the district of Arfenzo. I'm looking at this technical support in planning by MISA as well as the department. That RBIG project was implemented as far back as in 2012. And it has not been completed up to today. I don't know what kind of a multi-year project is that particular one, because it is still ongoing from 2012. And almost over 500 households were supposed to benefit from that particular regional scheme, are buying water from tankering services. And to what extent, therefore, is this technical support in planning and engineering by MISA going far in assisting the Alfredo District Municipality to make sure that particular scheme is being completed? In the same district, Chair, along with the Wild Coast Sun, on those communities, there is a beautiful scheme there, which is a black elephant. Because ever since it was established, another RPX program, it had never rendered water. Instead, when you open up the tap, it renders air. And those communities, again, are struggling because they had now to buy water from tankering services at a high cost. Then these transfers, to what extent the department monitoring that they are actually building functional schemes other than these schemes that are now defunct and therefore being a disappointment to communities. My last chair would be that the Department of COCTA, again, when is it apparently, I'm sorry, Chair. Okay, thanks, Chair.
Okay. I think this is the last responses now. Can we allow the department and departments both and MISA?
Thank you, Chairperson, and good afternoon to all the members once again. Chair, I will ask for further responses, but just perhaps on the response as it relates to the disciplinary cases, Chair, I want to confirm that the disciplinary matters are actually ongoing and they are actively actually sitting. And in this past month, the cases were proceeding and they were sitting every second week. We are at a point now where we are awaiting the reports from the chairperson. But what we will do, we will send a full report as a follow-on to the one that we had sent in April. I think with regards to the issues on CWP and the active participants, Mr. Pretorius just to provide an extended response on that. And so if he could come in now, thanks, Chair.
Yes.
Thank you, DG, and thank you, Chair. In response to the follow-up questions on CWP, Chair, we fully agree that it's very important that we do not have a situation again where participants are not paid on time every month. And as I indicated, over the past 2 months, all the participants we paid before the end of the month. We were working closely with CETA. We also made changes to the officials that are working on this every month to make sure that in future everybody gets paid before the end of the month. So this is a very high priority for us as a department as well. And I can assure you that the officials working on this work day and night when it comes to payment time to make sure that this is done. On the follow-up questions and comments by Honourable Spies, first of all, my apologies, Honourable Spies, for not switching on my camera. It is most definitely not out of disrespect for this committee. We take our work very seriously. And the team that works on the CWP is a very committed team. But you are right, we are a very small handful of people. We're 10 to 15 people. We cannot monitor 250 sites or more than 250 sites and almost 6,000 sub-sites to see whether the people that are indicated on a timesheet actually did work. We receive timesheets from the sites that are managed by the implementing agents and by the site managers that they appoint. And we base our payments on those timesheets. So the handful of people we have cannot possibly monitor every site. We have, however, we receive reports of these timesheets being signed, but people do not actually do the work. Our officials do go out to those sites and they pay surprise visits. And we have found in cases where the timesheets are signed in the morning and people go home, or sometimes they even signed for a week in advance, and then people do not work at the sites. And then we make sure that the implementing agents are then held to account for that. And unfortunately, in the current fiscal environment, where we are limited in the number of people we can appoint on our organizational structure, we have to rely on implementing agents, and we can only monitor. In those cases, we pay surprise visits, but we can also only monitor if we are informed that there are issues. And where we can, we do that. We do go to sites and we do take action. So that, and maybe in future, You are correct. We are working on a new operating model. We've already implemented part of that, where there's a bigger portion of the department that will have CWP as part of their responsibilities, so that we have more people that have eyes on the ground to see what happens on a day-to-day basis in CWP. If the CWP is implemented in the way it's intended to implement, it should benefit both the participants and the communities that they live in. And that is our intention, to keep on working to achieve that objective. We have sent through the list of payments and how many people are paid in each site and in each province. We sent it through the Secretariat of the Portfolio Committee. But as you indicate, yes, we do have the challenge that we don't always know if the work actually happens. And within our limited ability, we try to monitor that to the best of our abilities. And we appreciate when we are informed by members of Parliament or by members of the public, as sometimes happens, and we do investigate those cases. As far as the security companies are concerned, as the DG indicated by Honourable Kaiser, the question by Honourable Kaiser, as far as the securities are concerned, as the DG indicated, we employ a mixed model where some security guards, security officials are employed permanently by the department. We are unable to increase the number of people we employ because there's a limit imposed on us, on our compensation budget, and we cannot increase that limit. We do, however, make sure that when a company is appointed, that there are very strict rules in the way in which they treat the security guards. We monitor that actively. We have meetings with the security guards themselves to make sure that they have pension in place, and that they have the benefits that they are entitled to, that they receive their salaries. So not only, we don't rely only on the company itself, we definitely make sure that we follow up with the guards to make sure that they are treated in terms of the Basic Conditions of Employment Act and the Labour Relations Act, and that they receive their payment and benefits on a monthly basis. I think those were the questions I was required to respond to. Thanks, DG.
Gigi, is that done?
Yes, thank you, Honourable Chair. It is done. And then there was some questions as a follow-through on the non-revenue and non-electricity and monitoring. And I thought that Mr. Sigaba could just follow through as well with additional responses to these.
Okay. Honorable, okay. Mr. Sigaba.
Thank you, Chair. As I had indicated, we do have a full report that talks to this program. And one of the things that we had last year, in the budget forum, we presented a full report that talks to the implementation of asset management by municipalities. That also includes looking under maintenance, because most of the municipalities, they've been using the budget for repairs and maintenance of the infrastructure for other purposes. Hence, we find our infrastructure in this dilapidated state. So there is a recommendation that has been made now to the budget forum, so that funding is actually ring-fenced for the maintenance of infrastructure in the municipalities. But yeah, as I said, Chair, we do have the the documents that can be provided to the committee, so that maybe we can have a further engagement that particularly look at the both non-technical losses, because most of the losses you find that although the physical losses in terms of the burst pipes and the leakages, it's due to maintenance. We also have the non-technical losses that refer to theft, metering inaccuracies. There's also support now that has been given. ESCOM is implementing smart metering, so that the possibility of having this theft or meter inaccuracies is eliminated. And I think the case that has been referred by Honorable Mpumza with Port St. John's and Johannesburg, I think it's something that will have to be investigated because we are not aware of. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Mesa.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chair. In responding, I'll start with the question with the follow-up by Honorable Matumba, and really, firstly, appeal to members to just note the context under which the surrendering of the 117 million happened, which happened in the previous financial year. In the main, Chairperson, it's money that was committed. There were projects running. And MISA, as we reported previously, was always treated as a trading entity in terms of accounting by National Treasury. And we were allowed to retain funds that were a surplus in terms of what was then transferred to MISA. And in this case, for reason really, which I was still following up with National Treasury, Treasury took a decision not to approve that we retain those funds, even though they were committed and they were running projects to commit those funds. And the impact of that, you will see on our expenditure for this current financial year, that our going concern status has been seriously affected by that. So the issue of underspending is not like this is what we do, all the time. In fact, there was context to that one because of COVID-19 as well, and the fact that they were running projects which were affected by COVID-19 process. There were stoppages in terms of the construction sector for some time. So I wouldn't really say we surrender funds to National Treasury as Honorable Matumba articulate. It's an isolated case which we are following up. And if you look into what is reflected now at Chairperson, there is money that was allocated to MESA only in November, and we're expected to commit and spend the money in March, the 284 million, and we managed to move with speed and committed the money and spent half of it, of that money, but there was money still not committed, which we're engaging Treasurer now to ensure that money is approved for retention, which is a ring-fenced funding for innovative waste management solution. So we don't necessarily have a history of returning money to National Treasury Chairperson. I hope it does clarify our position. And also, if you look into the work that MISA is doing, municipalities, Chairperson, many municipalities in this country are actually relying on the support that MISA is providing. And we receive good feedback about the work that MISA is doing. Thank you very much. Then the question raised by Honorable Mpumza with regard to Alfredo Chairperson. The Alfredo scheme, Honorable Mpumza is correct. It's an old scheme started in 2012, but of course, bulk infrastructure was ahead of the planning for reticulation in Alfredo. But because of the funding challenges to respond to the scheme as quick as possible, Alfredo have been implementing the project in phases, and they're still implementing it, Chairperson. And the MISA team is working hand in hand with Alfredo to augment their capacity and ensure that ultimately that scheme is completed. But the work is on the ground, and funding is always constrained to ensure that they complete all the schemes Chairperson, on time. But we also note, Chairperson, the scheme around the Wild Coast that Honorable Tumza is referring to. I will task the team to investigate that one. I don't want to lie. I'm not aware that there's a scheme that has been complete but is not producing water. We'll have to investigate and then bring a report to the committee in terms of the status of the scheme and what needs to be done. And with regard to Port St. John's, people buying 200 units of electricity for 500, I think that matter needs to be investigated. I think the team will follow it up. Of course, together with the department, Chairperson, we'll follow up on that matter. Thank you very much. I think we have responded to all the follow-up questions, Chair.
Okay. DTA.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. I went through the follow-up questions that were raised by Honorable Speaks, Honorable Umza, Honorable Matumba, and Honorable Geza. I couldn't identify any that's specific to DTA, except that the issue of security staff. I think there are very serious concerns that are being raised by the honourable members. So whilst there might be constraints in terms of the compensation of employees ceiling, that we don't have the authority to increase it. But the challenge that I hear the honourable members presenting to us is what about the issues of the employment conditions of the staff that are contracted by these companies, and isn't there anything that can be done to hold the companies accountable for fair employment conditions, given the examples that the honourable members have given. So I think this is a challenge that we should accept and look into, so that obviously without interfering in the affairs of the companies directly, but to the extent that they enter into agreements with us, what is it that can be done to make sure that they are held accountable for fair employment practices. So I've noted that is a challenge that we will need to reflect on, Honourable Chair, so that we can see if there are other avenues that we can explore in that regard, given the constraints that are there, that as accounting officers, we don't have the authority to increase our compensation of employees ceilings. That's a process that is being kept outside our levels of authority. But to the extent that there are other things that can be done to address the concerns that members are raised about the conditions of employment, let's look into those and see what avenues we can explore in that regard. Thanks, Honourable Chair.
Thank you very much. Now, honourable members, I think we have given ourselves enough time to engage. Can I now allow the DM, if there are any concluding remarks she would like to make?
Thank you very much, Chair, and honourable members of the portfolio for the questions and the hour-and-a-half session of deliberations for clarifications that has unfolded. Chair, there are a few areas I would like to emphasize. One being the response of the department with regards to the disciplinary cases. I know the DG had highlighted on it, but Chair, I would like to emphasize that the portfolio committee, which sat on the 22nd of March, raised this issue and requested a written report. That report was forwarded to the portfolio committee on the 5th of April. And in it, it was detailing thoroughly the 13 outside the forensic, 13 officials, and detailing what has happened, including the referral of cases that were concluded to the Hawks, which is the law enforcement agents, beyond what the department could do. So I'm not sure whether the department should resubmit that. It was actually not only in isolation. That report was about 3 to 4 pages, detailed issues that were raised by the portfolio committee on the 22nd of March. And I'm emphasizing this, Chair, because we may want to have possibly a system on how, when we have responded, we recapture the issues for discussion so that they don't emanate as if the department and the portfolio, when it raises issues, the department doesn't take the issues that they have raised serious. Am I saying all the answers we have provided 100%? There's nothing the portfolio committee will not be happy, will not be unhappy about? No, it's a work in progress on quite a number of issues. I mean, for example, a case that is referred to law enforcement agencies, after we've concluded a disciplinary process in the department, means we will continuously, as we get updated by law enforcement agencies, update the portfolio committee. But it was raised not unless my understanding, Chair, was incorrect, and I will apologize in advance if that was my understanding, that the department received what the portfolio was not happy about, and it didn't care, it didn't do anything about it, it didn't even offer a response. I just wanted to record that a response was offered by the department on all the range of issues, and I wouldn't want to take back the portfolio into those issues that were sufficiently responded to our capability to the portfolio committee. Secondly, the issue of insourcing of securities, Chair. It would want us broadly to define the roles and responsibilities of what the minister, the law allows her or him to do as a member of the executive, but also the right of municipalities in the other instance, because I did see Honorable Keza raising it from a department point of view, but also touching on the municipal point of view. The response from DCOC on behalf of the department is that it is not affordable. We're not saying it is not the right thing to do. We're not saying it is not the correct thing to do. We're working on the basis of what we get to be allocated, and it is not affordable. Because on top of a salary, if you are a full-time employee, they are all third-party related expenses that include, or that must be included on the cost of employees into a salary of every individual, cleaner, security, whoever involved. And en masse introduction of such, it then leads that the department needs to permanently be able to pay those individuals, budgeting for them, and in estimation up to the age of 65 years of their retirement. It could happen earlier due to resignation, natural attrition, and any other thing. But by law, you have to be able to budget for that once you bring an insourcing. At a municipal point of view, it will be wrong for me, Chair, to say municipalities, COCTA will tell them to bring. We don't even have that right, not unless the portfolio would want, maybe that we discuss another amendment to the Act. Municipalities are spheres of the 3-tier spheres of government, and they are by law equipped to run their own recruitment and management policies. We assist with regard to policy development of management, capacity development from institutional ID branch, but councils must adopt their own organizational structures. We could advise on that, and sometimes the PSA at our request does advise, but we all know as it stands now, municipalities with regard to their own payment and their staff are bloated. Some are paying at about 68% cost to employees, excluding what we could be able to do. So I don't want to leave here, Honorable Chair, with a promise that says we will come back on the insourcing of security, because that's the power we don't have. We do not have that, but we had the committee. When we go to platforms like the Budget Forum, we will raise such issues as being raised by honorable members. By the way, being a former mayor, it's not the only area where you may want to insource if you want to avoid the abuse of employees. Contractors don't pay their employees even when municipalities has paid them, and sometimes they stop projects, which is one of the delays of the projects as well. Can COCTA go and say to municipalities, insource everybody, do the roads yourself? We do not have that right, Chair, but we understand the importance of the matters that needs to be understood within the context of one, job creation, within the context of job security, and within the context of humanity of all employees, whether part-time or full-time in government at whatever sphere that is supposed to be. Chair, I thought I will emphasize these 2 points because to me, they kept on coming in different contexts and not the first time around. And I thought, let me rather be honest with what the portfolio needs to expect from the department and what we will commit ourselves to doing. But I wouldn't be truthful to the portfolio to commit the department on something that I know is even beyond their capability or allowance by law to be able to. The third issue I wanted to talk to, Chair, is CWP. One, Honorable Speaker, maybe offer an apology, honestly, on behalf of the department. We did forward the information. The investigation did respond to be seeming to be suggesting that the banking details of the person I wouldn't name here that you had forwarded, there was a mix-up. It's not the correct recipient who was receiving the money, but we started with regard to action in terms of correction of that. But I will also say, Chair, within the broader context of CWP, there are areas in terms of provinces where we need pockets of improvement and pockets of learning from other provinces that are slightly doing better than the others to do an overhaul and the introduction of a better working public service. My fourth issue, Chair, is with regard to one plans. Yes, Honorable Mpumza, we did indicate the number, but I can also indicate to the committee that there are some districts which are reluctant to submit. One of them has actually sent it in writing to the minister that it believes that we are interfering if we want to assist them to plan what by law is supposed to be their responsibility. We're still trying to engage that district, which is a metro, by the way, because the understanding of the IDP, for example, the reason why it's called integrated is because it comes from the intergovernment relations framework, which by its very own nature in the white paper of 1998, right, instructs municipalities to plan together with all spheres of government. So the interpretation of one plans and DDM in some municipalities is not fully comprehended in how we are comprehending it and would want to do that. So it is not necessarily because we're not giving necessary attention to the conclusion of that. If I'm not wrong, DG, with regard to the update that we have, both in terms of our municipal support improvement plans and our one budget plan, we have had an increase from the 13 that was remaining to somewhere remaining around 9. I was hoping Mema Bidilala will be here to correct that figure. But Chair, I can commit, we will send a full information with regard to how far are we on the plans, who has submitted. The ones that have been submitted, Chair, have already been forwarded to the Office of the Premiers for quality assurance, supervision, and rollout and implementation. We'll touch on those as well in terms of how far are provinces with regard to quality assuring our one plans, which we wrote together with the provincial COCTAs to ensure that the Premier's offices are now responsible to assisting municipalities in running their integrated ITPs, but also ensuring that it's one consolidated planning of every district which cascades into all municipalities. I think those were the 4 issues, Honorable Chair, that I wanted to touch base on and thank the opportunity and, of course, the learnings that we got as a department to improve and equally harness a local government. It is everybody's business. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, DM. I think critically for this session, my opening remarks have prompted us to take a view that says we must have a session as the portfolio committee where all these issues that we see them happening and see how we can process them as a committee, but equally, how do we communicate with the department? So one little omission was this thing of this WhatsApp group, which I assumed that everybody see what is getting raised there. So I think we agree on that. And number two, one discovery that we have, I think generally most of those who are doing oversight, whether it is Parliament or the Chapter 9 institutions, is that we are not doing consistent follow-up on the issues that we raise to a conclusion. I think we'll have to improve on that. By implication, all the commitments that have been made to say information will be supplied. I think that information should be supplied, but it equally talks to the portfolio committee support staff to say any information submitted must be processed and finally get to some conclusion to say what is actually happening. Now, the last point on, in fact, it's two issues that we'll have to understand each other. On this issue of delivery of services, we will have to be very meticulous in dealing with those, whether it is the department or the portfolio committee that is dealing with. We'll have to be very meticulous. And also on this issue of consequences management, I think we'll have to irritate each other on this issue, because that's where we are found to be wanting as government. When I say government, us as the portfolio committee, the question is we are not doing proper oversight over this issue and the Chapter 9 institutions. And that equally talks to those who execute the executive. I think we'll have to be very meticulous in terms of dealing with wrongdoing. I know the process might be long. The process might be with the Hawks. The process might be with the SIU. But all those people, in terms of what our responsibility is, we ask all of them. In other words, we have got a right to call the Hawks if we get an indication that there's no progress, then the department has done what they are supposed to do. And if there's no action by SIU, then the department has done what they are supposed to do. In other words, we do engage them. And generally, they point a finger to the departments to say, we referred these cases for misconduct and we have no authority over that. The same that we are getting from the department to say, these matters have been referred to the Hawks and there's no action, no feedback. But in the end, those who are supposed to be beneficiaries of action are the people that we represent. So in other words, those two issues of service delivery, issues of consequences for wrongdoing, I think we'll have to put them high. On the issue of insourcing, that's a policy matter. We have got a right, Honorable Deputy Minister, to raise issues, but such issues must be processed properly. It's a policy matter, and executive is at the center of that. But raising it doesn't mean that must just be reaction. You do what we say. You look at the implications, you look at everything. So in other words, we understand that. And equally so, improvement on this thing of CWP. And if so, we must be assured as public, so that in the end, we are the ones who should be actually articulating this in the public. My last point would be, Honorable Mpumza, I will not allow you. I'm closing. My last point would be public education in terms of the laws that we pass. I think specifically there was focus on this Customary Initiation Act.
Hello. Aye.
Honorable Mpumza, you are not going to talk now. I think we want to partner with the department in everything that must be communicated, especially when we must public education, especially on the issue of the initiation, Customary Initiation Act, and the National Initiation Oversight Committee. When we're closing that program, there were specific tasks that we said we would want them to. And so whatever that must be done between now and December, would be very keen to understand and support, by the way. Besides asking questions, we are another arm of government that should actually communicate what the laws are saying and make sure that they get implemented. I just thought I should raise those, but specifically in terms of what we're supposed to do today, I think we are all generally happy, and the meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you very much.
Yes.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Chair.
Recording stopped.
Thank you, teachers. Thank you very much. Thank you, Chair. Bye.
Hold on.
Bye.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Bye-bye.